Andrew, go ahead.
So on Tuesday, the president told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the president. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say, but I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the president's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The president's very proud of his family. In fact, the president has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime.
So that is Trump press secretary Karoline Leavitt getting visibly pissed. You can see it on her face. She's looking away in anger as the reporter confronts her with further evidence of Donald Trump's pathological dishonesty or cognitive decline, perhaps both, in which Trump told a story that violates the space-time continuum and understanding of human time. And Leavitt's response is equally incoherent. You know, I'm surprised that you would ask a question like that, although actually I'm not surprised. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. It's Schrodinger's surprise. And actually, I do have an answer for you. Trump's uncle was actually an MIT professor. Next question. I mean, embarrassing, even by Leavitt standards. Trump's, again, cognitive decline is making things so challenging for Leavitt and other prominent MAGA commentators, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at here. It's important to remember Donald Trump is the oldest president at this point in his presidency in American history. He's older 6 months in. We are actually 6 months. I know it feels like 6 years. 6 months into Trump's second term. 6 months into Biden's term, Trump is actually older than Biden was at this point in their respective terms, right? And it's also important to remember that during the 2024 election, Trump also faced, despite a much more favorable media landscape, he faced considerable questions about his own mental fitness, right? And actually, poll after poll after poll showed that while more Americans were obviously more concerned about President Biden's mental fitness, majorities of Americans often were concerned about both men, right? So it's not like Trump was ever seen as a beacon of mental health and mental fitness. And when Vice President Harris became the nominee, that divide was even more stark. I mean, then it was like, okay, well, she's mentally fit, but Trump is obviously the mentally unfit candidate. So these concerns have maintained, even though, again, Trump is graded on a curve. Well, I want you to hear the ridiculous story that Trump said a couple of days ago that predicated the question that so pissed off Karoline Leavitt just there, and then we'll get into the reaction.
And I have to brag just for a second, because when I first heard about AI, it's not my thing. Although my uncle was at MIT, one of the great professors, 51 years, whatever, he was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, 3 degrees in nuclear, chemical, and math. That's a smart man. Kaczynski was one of his students. Do you know who Kaczynski was? There's very little difference between a madman and a genius. But Kaczynski, I said, what kind of a student was he, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump? He said, what kind of a student? And he said, seriously good. He said he'd go around correcting everybody, but it didn't work out too well for him. Didn't work out too well, but it's interesting in life. But I will say this, that
So, again, for all the reasons that the reporter laid out, and actually Seth Meyers is going to lay out in a pretty humorous reaction too, that timeline doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Okay, here's Seth Meyers' hilarious reaction to this.
Now, you might hear that story and think to yourself, makes sense, I have no follow-up questions, but hold your horses, because it turns out, A, the Unabomber didn't go to MIT, and B, Trump's uncle died 10 years before Kaczynski became known as the Unabomber. So the whole thing we just heard wasn't just a small lie, it was like a full hallucination.
Yeah. I mean, again, either he is by far the most pathological unparalleled liar in the history of this country, objectively worse than every Democrat who's ever lived, or he's in a state of age-related cognitive decline. And I think both of these things merit questions, especially since Trump is the sitting president. And of course, this comes on the heels of another high-profile pathological dishonesty cognitive decline episode, which we covered in a previous video, which is Trump not remembering that he was the one who appointed Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to that position. Trump is pissed at Powell, wants him to quit, wants to fire him, and doesn't want Powell to serve out the remainder of his term. And he said in the Oval Office just a couple of days ago, he's like, I can't believe Biden appointed him and then extended his term. Except it wasn't Biden who appointed Jerome Powell. It was Donald Trump back in 2017. We did a whole video about it because it's good that this is being exposed and people are mocking Trump about it, as well they should. Because if the concern is we don't want a cognitively impaired president, I agree. Which is why, by the way, even though I think they're playing it up, I have no inherent objection to people asking questions about Joe Biden or wanting to do some sort of after-action report. If Republicans want to investigate all that, be my guest. But one standard should apply to presidents of both parties. And if we're going to be concerned about a potentially cognitively impaired former president, then we should also be concerned that the current president may be cognitively impaired as well, especially when he loses track of time. See, Joe Biden reappointed Jerome Powell after Powell's first term expired. President Biden renominated Powell, and Powell continued to serve as Fed chair, but it was Trump who put him in that position in the first place. It's an objective fact. We had the before and after videos comparing it. So these two incidents just happened back to back, the Unabomber MIT uncle story and the Jerome Powell thing. And so Scott Jennings, who is one of the biggest MAGA douchebags in existence, I mean, I think he's more insufferably smug than any MAGA douchebag to be found in mainstream and alternative media. Scott Jennings is just number one. And there are a lot of hate watchers. I get it. I mean, he's a good foil on TV. He and another smug MAGA douchebag, Ted Cruz's sidekick, whose name escapes me, who serves on as the sidekick and personal assistant and coffee guy on Ted Cruz's podcast, they struggled in real time to deal with these embarrassing gaffes from Donald Trump. So I want to play a couple of clips.
Absolutely. Talk to me about it. I mean, why is that more concerning than what has happened this week? He didn't even remember appointing his own Fed chair.
Here's my view of the medical situation of this president versus the last one. This president has a doctor who is issuing very transparent letters about this president's health. Okay. The former president has a doctor who's taking the Fifth Amendment before Congress right now because he doesn't want to answer questions about it. I've been around him. I have detected nothing. I've seen nothing but a man conducting 6 meetings at the same time.
You sound like Joe Biden's aides who said, I've been around him. And
I'm not taking the Fifth Amendment out of Congress.
I'm just saying.
You're also not testifying under oath, asshole. And again, just apples and oranges. And by the way, if taking the Fifth implicates guilt, and by the way, that's a perfectly reasonable position to take. If you take the Fifth Amendment, it must be because you're guilty. You're worried about self-incrimination. Donald Trump takes the Fifth all the time, so objectively, he's guilty, which means you still lose the debate. You always lose because Trump is morally and intellectually inferior to every Democrat. So even by your own standards, you always lose the debate, Scott.
That by your own metric, if this were Joe Biden, and perhaps it was when he said his uncle
He's working 20 hours a day.
He does
hours of press conferences every day. Abby, are you saying Donald Trump is not visible as president and it's anywhere comparable to Biden's hiding for 4 years?
I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just asking why he didn't remember that he appointed the Fed chair in 2017 and stood in the Rose Garden with him and appointed him. Why didn't he remember that?
I think
Listen, I mean, just be like, this is the thing. Just be like, he fucked up. He just listen, it was a brain fart. He fucked up. And yes, it is embarrassing. And no, we're not going to pretend it's not embarrassing. He screwed up. They can't even say that. These people are such losers. They're losers. And I love it. And Scott Jennings was so outraged. Like, are you saying Donald Trump isn't visible? No, she didn't actually say that at all. You're just trying to distract. You're trying to change the subject. Donald Trump is visible, and he's invisible cognitive, he's a moron. That's the other thing. Biden's age-related cognitive decline was mitigated by the fact that Biden's a smart person. Donald Trump is a moron and a malignant narcissist and a sociopath in cognitive decline, and that's that's a problem. Like John Lovett said on Pod Save America, the choice in the 2024 election was old versus crazy and old. So here's another clip.
Saying any of those things, I'm just asking why he didn't remember that he appointed the Fed chair in 2017 and stood in the Rose Garden with him and appointed him. Why didn't he remember that?
I think this might be the most fun nothing burger I've seen in a while.
Oh, yeah?
You have transparency from the White House saying that there's an issue, and here it is.
They did that with Biden too, believe it or not. So they're talking about this like chronic this vein issue that Trump has, which is causing his ankles to be swollen and him to become easily bruised. Well, they also said that Biden had like an esophageal issue, and I think he had like some sort of like lesion removed, like cancerous lesion removed during his stay in office. This idea that there was no transparency about Biden is just bullshit. And if you're appealing to this with Trump to say that Trump must not be cognitively impaired because his physician released this report. Well, it also came after days, weeks, months of speculation about Trump's weight and about the bruising on his hands. It's not the first time. So number one, I reject the premise. Number two, if that's the standard, then you should be applauding Joe Biden for his medical transparency because his physicians also similarly reported some medical issues during his administration. Again, total bullshit from Ted Cruz's sidekick here, who always loses the debate. You should see him on Piers Morgan.
Goodness, we've got that back, number one. Number two, no one's having to lie on his behalf and cover it up. They're not having to plan meetings around certain times when he's cognitive and then give him a nap time in the middle of the day and saying he works 4 hours a day. Donald Trump literally works 10, 12, 15, 18, 20 hours a day. Constantly
20
flying
hours
all
a
over the
day.
place. There are days when he
hours
has.
a day.
Yes, there have been
20
days
hours
when
a
he's worked
day.
that many hours.
There's Kool-Aid on the side of your. Are you serious?
He tweets all night long. Do you not see it?
Look, what has been here?
All of those things are.
That's so funny. Of course he's working. He's tweeting all hours of the night. Then most teenagers everywhere. You know what? Oh my God. Most teenagers, because they're on social media at 3 a.m., they're working. That's the dumb, like these people are so dumb and dishonest. Why they always lose the argument. They always lose. He's working. You see him saying a mean tweet. These people are embarrassing. But again, they're also trying to distract. I wonder if Abby will try to bring them back on topic.
Kind of irrelevant to the
I'll give
central
you a great
question.
What has been
clear
clear throughout the time that we have seen him on the public stage is this is not the most intelligent person we have. This is not the best analyst of information.
You may not
and
like
he does
him,
not,
but at
and he
least
does
the
not
guy
have
is-
a lot of information at his fingertips as far as things that he knows. So if there is a cognitive, cognitive problem,
You ever met him?
I actually have met him. I met him at the White House court. Actually,
did you converse
met him
with
at
him
the
about
White.
any
Yes,
issue?
I met him
Get
at the
lost
White
on
House
stage
court.
like Joe Biden.
So again, these people they're so upset. How dare you call Donald Trump stupid? Well, it's because we actually see him and he can't speak competently or cogently on any subject of any material import, be it domestic or foreign policy. So again, it's a good point. Like Trump is so stupid, sometimes it's hard to tell if it's just stupidity or cognitive decline. I think it's both. They're not mutually exclusive. He's a dumb man in a state of cognitive decline. And I love it. Scott Jennings and again, Ted Cruz's sidekick, just all out of sorts, desperate to change the topic. Instead of they don't even have to concede that he's in cognitive decline. Just be like, listen, that was an embarrassing screw up. Donald Trump obviously misspoke. He was just dead wrong. Yes, he appointed Jerome Powell, and then Biden extended Powell's term by reappointing him, and then move on. But they can't even do that because, again, they just have a ruthless commitment to always losing the debate, and it's fun to watch. There you have it, folks. MAGA in uproar, MAGA struggling to deal with evidence of Trump's cognitive decline. Karoline Leavitt, Trump's press secretary, visibly pissed and struggling to distract from that ridiculous, incoherent, linearly incompatible answer from Donald Trump, again, indicating that he is the most egregious liar in the history of American politics, or he's just a moron whose brain is like corroding in real time. One of the two. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.